Was there extra pressure going to these filmings, knowing that they're going to be, viewed for all eternity? Because improv, and the beauty of it is it's ephemeral.
It's a weird thing because as an improviser, you're trying to find the first unusual thing. And the first unusual thing is there's 9 cameras at you. The first unusual thing is that you can't sing copywritten material because we don't have the money to license any songs. So it's like, so the first show that we did, we did 4 and we kept 3 of the 4 to air. And the first one was kind of figuring a bunch of that stuff out.
You have more creativity, the more you can relax and kind of get into the zone and not think about all that stuff. But on top of everything that Ben said, there's the very clear notion that this better work. Otherwise, it won't happen again,
Who's going to pay for those cameras? 9 of them?
Pay for those things.
That adds up. I always notice there's that moment, there's that like amazing moment. You ask for the suggestion, you talk to the audience member, you get the story out, then it's like, all right, let's do this. And then you either run to the back of the stage, or you put your head down, you stroke the chin. What goes through your head in those brief seconds before things kick off?
In our particular show, because we are telling a story over the course of an hour almost, we don't have to, and unlike, for example, a format like ASCAT where you have like scenes that are kind of short-lived that then get tied later on, you don't have to come up with like premise beach, I always think of, which is a Kids in the Hall sketch where they just talk about different premises. Like you don't have to like quickly come up. You can just sort of think, oh, well, I'm going to pull this element of a character, or like, here's where I might try to initiate where we start off, or like where we start or how we start off. But that's all the responsibility you have, really. I mean, if you come up with something incredibly succinct, that's fine. But really all you can do is just sort of like give a hint as to like where we are and who someone might be, one of the two. And then you can just you can take your time. When you have an hour, you don't have to figure everything out in the first.
I think it also differs. Thomas is so right, because like when we've done ASCAT before, when I hear in ASCAT they do a monologue and the person's speaking on stage, a performer, for like 5 minutes. So you have time to really think your ideas, and also you're supposed to take those exact stories and turn them into, so you can find out ways like, oh, no one's thinking about me starting saying this. But for ours, literally what I usually do is right after, because we've been taught, usually we do bits with the audience for 15, 20 minutes. And then I'll get a drink of water. I'll look at Thomas and I'll start trying to think of someone to start it. I'll look at Thomas, and if it looks like Thomas doesn't have an initiation, then I'll initiate. Or if I see that he's coming in with something, you just react. But Thomas is right. We're not thinking about anything except for a first line, a character to get us in the world or the environment to know where we're going to start. Because our show is so linear and telling such a long story that we have to be able to, that moment's always happening. So you only see that split second moment right at the very beginning of the first beat of the first show.
Yeah, and as you're teasing out that story from the audience, the kindling for the show that you're going to make, the fire you're going to put on, the active listening must be so intense, right?
I'm not sure if it happens in the specials. I can't remember, but definitely happens in all the shows of like, well, not all, but sometimes we'll take stuff from the things we even talk about before we get to the interview, like some of our banter that we're just like, how are you doing today? Well, this happened. And like, we didn't, because sometimes we'll be touring and we actually don't get a chance to talk to each other during the day, really. And so we catch up on stage and that'll make it in. It's just, I think you just have to flick a switch, which is completely different than my normal life because I don't listen to anyone other than my own thoughts. You just have to sort of like make sure your ears are open and you're like downloading information and storing it into files of like, bring that back in 45 minutes or bring that back in 5 minutes.
That's good. You like remember a thing like, oh, that character, that's good to remember. I don't know where the hell he's going to show up, but keep that here because there's going to be a way to use him somewhere. You know what I mean?
That random ghost will become the officiant of the...
Yeah, something like that.
But that's also a discovery. The ghost just wasn't a ghost.
Nowhere. Right.
The ghost was like, oh, I'm a ghost. And then it was discovered later by moves that only became apparent at that point that the ghost had some kind of relevancy.
What does this pandemic mean for the future of improv? Is it going to be just mono scenes from here on in?
I don't know what's going to happen. We rescheduled some shows because, people, our agents like got to reschedule these. And I don't know when it's even going to be time to come back, honestly, because they'll pitch a date. And we have no idea. It's a very weird thing. I don't even know when we can go to the movie theater next. Even if you split it up where you're every other seat, everything is going to be, I think even when things open up, this is too much to talk about right now, but even when things open up, people are going to be a little bit anxious and scared. So there's going to be a time period after that. So I wonder what happens. But I know that when Thomas and I are allowed to be on stage together, and it's safe. We will be on stage because it's something that I miss it a ton.
Do you remember the first time you guys met?
Eating pizza, eating Two Boots pizza, walking around Manhattan, just talking improv, being friends. Probably talking about what video games we played as children and what video games we played at that point.
Probably true.
And how cool would be to one day voice, I don't know, Sonic the Hedgehog movie?
That is exactly what we talked about. In that conversation, 12 years ago, I was like, man, I hope one day that you get to talk like Captain Underpants, one of the Captain Underpants characters.
Yeah.
Get to talk.
But don't you remember, like, when you started talking about Sonic, I fainted and I was convulsing on the ground, and then I came to and I was like, it will happen!
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, Thomas came. He literally passed out and came back, said it will happen, and marked the date. And he said there may be a little stumble in that first trailer, but you're going to break box office records.
Yeah,
said the whole thing.
Be a few issues of the physical manifestation of how the character comes out in Gen 1.
But he was shaking. Like when he was singing, he was shaking, so it was hard to hear everything he was saying.
And it made a mess of my pants. I pooed and I peed and I pooed and I
both
peed.
Sides. He both sides.
As we like to call it in the biz, I both sided.
We're back, Thomas. You and I were doing improv again, baby.
Hey, that's all it takes.
This could be the 4th special. Are we recording this?
Isolate Night with Scott Rogowski, live every Sunday through Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern.